June 3rd. It was the kind of day fathers live for. The gymnasium was packed wall to wall with proud families, students in caps and gowns, and camera flashes firing like fireworks. It was graduation day at Westbrook High School, a small but reputable school in suburban Georgia. Inside, the crowd buzzed with anticipation. Years of study, struggle, sacrifice, culminating in this single, proud moment. But for Master Sergeant Elijah Brown, this wasn't just another high school ceremony. It was a moment he had dreamed of through deployments, night shifts, field ops, and lonely birthdays. His son, Darius, was about to walk across that stage. A first-generation college-bound black student, the pride of the family, the kid who made it. Elijah arrived 20 minutes early, dressed sharp, U.S. Marine dress blues, rows of ribbons, polished shoes, silver bars gleaming on his shoulders. No one could miss who he was, or what he'd given to the country. He found his seat, row 6 aisle seat, perfect view. He greeted the lady next to him with a nod. She smiled politely. He sat, silent, beaming with pride. But then it happened. 2 private security guards walked directly up to him. No hesitation. No warning. "Sir, we need you to come with us." Elijah blinked, confused. "Excuse me? Please come with us, sir. You're not authorized to be here." He stood up slowly, still not processing what was happening. "I'm here for my son's graduation. My name is—" "We don't need your name. You need to step out. Now!" Gasps erupted from nearby seats. Elijah looked around. The woman next to him was already pulling out her phone. A few others had stopped clapping. The entire row behind him had gone silent. The guards flanked him. They didn't touch him. But the threat was implied. His Marine instincts flared. His chest rose. But he didn't resist. He walked, escorted by 2 men with radios, badges, and authority they believed he didn't deserve. Outside the gym doors, one of the guards pulled out a clipboard. We were told there was someone impersonating a military officer in the audience. You matched the description. Elijah's jaw clenched. "I've served for 22 years. Don't you ever accuse me of impersonating service." The guard looked unfazed. "We just follow protocol." "Whose protocol?" No answer. By the time they let him back inside, after checking his ID, verify his name, and letting a school official confirm his purpose, Darius had already crossed the stage. Elijah missed it. He missed a smile. He missed a fist pump. He missed the moment he swore, through blood and bone, he'd lived to see. When Elijah stepped back inside, the ceremony was nearly over. The last row of students was already making its way across the stage. Applause echoed off the gym walls. But for Elijah, there was no sound, just a high-pitched ringing in his ears. He stood at the back, rigid and motionless, his eyes scanning the crowd in desperation. Somewhere among them was his son, already seated, unaware of what had just happened. The military taught Elijah a lot: how to remain calm under fire, how to protect others before himself, how to swallow rage so deep that it burns your insides without ever spilling over. But nothing prepared him for this. The guards didn't follow him back in. They had done their job. Elijah didn't speak. He didn't move. He waited for the closing remarks, waited for the families to erupt in cheers, for the flood of bodies moving toward the exits. And when he finally saw Darius, they locked eyes across a sea of parents and friends. His son smiled, wide and proud. Elijah tried to match it, but he couldn't fake what had been stolen. Darius ran up and hugged him. "Did you see me, Dad? I looked for you when they called my name." And all Elijah could say was, "I saw you," a lie to protect the moment. But inside, something cracked. Later that evening, Elijah called the school. He wanted answers. Not revenge, not publicity, just the truth. The voice on the other end, an assistant principal, was polite, rehearsed. "We were informed by our security team that there was a report of someone in military uniform not matching the approved guest list. In these times, we have to take every precaution." "Precaution?" Elijah repeated. "Did they check everyone in uniform? Or just the black man?" Silence. "We can't comment on that." He pressed. "Was there any complaint filed?" "A parent who said something." We can't disclose that either, sir. But Elijah knew. You can serve this country in sandstorms and sniper fire, but the moment you sit in the wrong place, in the wrong town, wearing the wrong skin, your credibility vanishes. He hung up, not in anger, in defeat. And then he went into his garage, laid out his ribbons, his certificates, his medals. 22 years of sacrifice. He took a photo of them, posted it online, captioned it, "I wore this uniform to watch my son graduate. Instead, I was removed by force. They said I didn't belong." By morning, the post had been shared over 70,000 times. News stations picked it up. Headlines exploded. Black Marine, removed from son's graduation by security. Decorated veteran mistaken for imposter. He served his country, but wasn't welcome at home. Twitter erupted. So did Instagram. TikTok creators stitched the story with tears and fury. Veterans from all over the country started posting their own videos. Black, brown, white, all of them saying the same thing. "We're tired of this." One clip showed a retired Navy officer saying, "I wore this uniform for 30 years. If that man doesn't belong in America's heart, then none of us do." Another, "If you're more afraid of a black Marine than a school shooter, then the threat isn't the uniform. It's your mindset." The school district tried to release a statement, a generic one. "We deeply regret the unfortunate misunderstanding that took place during our graduation ceremony. The incident is under review." People weren't buying it, because what happened to Elijah wasn't a misunderstanding. It was systemic, predictable, avoidable, and for once, people weren't willing to let it slide. Elijah sat at his kitchen table, staring at his phone screen as messages poured in from all corners of the country. Veterans, activists, parents, celebrities. Some simply said, "We see you." Others added, "This happens too often." One message stood out from a young black father in Louisiana. "I was going to wear my Army uniform to my daughter's graduation next week. Not anymore. I don't want to give them a reason." That message broke something deep inside Elijah. Because the truth was, the uniform was never a shield. It never stopped traffic stops from turning hostile. It never made neighbors stop clutching their purses. It never made America see him as anything more than what they feared, until they needed him. Elijah had always believed in discipline, in order, in earning respect. But now he saw it for what it was. Respect in this country is too often conditional, and it expires fast when you're black. His son Darius watched it all unfold, and though Elijah tried to protect him from the weight of the moment, he couldn't unring the bell. "Dad," Darius asked one night, "if they didn't believe you were a real Marine, what would they have done if you didn't have that ID on you?" Elijah had no answer, because the truth was terrifying. 2 weeks later, the local school board held an emergency public forum. It was supposed to be routine. Apologize, discuss policy, move on. But the town didn't let it go that easy. The gymnasium, the same one where Darius had graduated, was now filled with angry parents, veterans in uniform, and local activists. Elijah didn't speak first. He didn't want the spotlight. But when his name was called to the podium, the crowd stood, applauded. He walked to the mic slowly, uniform again, not because he wanted attention, because he wanted them to look him in the eye and see who they disrespected. His voice was calm, controlled. "I spent 22 years overseas defending this country. I didn't do it for medals. I didn't do it for parades. I did it so my son could walk across a stage without fear. And you took that from me. You didn't just take a moment. You taught every young black man in that crowd that even a Marine in uniform isn't safe from suspicion. You didn't just question me. You question whether someone like me belongs in a place of pride, in a seat of honor." The room was silent. The school board, clearly shaken, tried to respond, promised new training for staff, promised that the guards had been temporarily removed. But Elijah had one request. "I don't want suspension. I don't want quiet retirements. I want accountability. I want the guards fired. I want a public apology in the same gym you humiliated me in. And I want this district to admit that race played a role. Because if we can't say it out loud, we'll never fix it. The crowd roared in agreement. And for once, the board had no place to hide. Within 48 hours, the story exploded again, this time on national TV. CNN, MSNBC, even conservative outlets picked it up, but with different spins. Some hosts defended the guards, saying they were just doing their jobs. But the public wasn't buying it, because what job includes humiliating a decorated veteran based on appearance alone? Petitions started. Over 500,000 signatures demanding the guards be terminated. Others asked for the principal's resignation. Some called for a federal civil rights investigation. But for Elijah, none of that would undo what was done. He watched his son grow more distant, not because of shame, but because of disillusionment. "Dad," Darius said, "you taught me to stand straight, to be respectful, to wear my name with pride." But none of that mattered to them. All they saw was a black man in a place they didn't think he belonged. That truth hit harder than any battlefield ever had. Because for Elijah, this wasn't just about being removed from a room. It was about being removed from dignity. 3 weeks after the incident, the school district held a press conference. Rows of cameras, reporters, carefully worded statements, suits and ties everywhere. The superintendent stood behind a wooden podium and said all the words you'd expect. "We are deeply sorry for the pain Mr. Brown and his family experienced. This does not reflect the values of our community. We are committed to learning from this moment." Then came the big headline. The 2 guards involved were fired, effective immediately. To the media, that seemed like justice. To Elijah, it felt like damage control. Because no one had ever said the real word, racism. Not once. They apologized for protocol failures, for miscommunication, for security procedures gone wrong. But no one admitted that Elijah had been profiled, and that's what burned most. That same day, civil rights attorney Benjamin Cartwright stepped forward to represent Elijah, a quiet man with a sharp mind and a sharper legal reputation. "What happened to Master Sergeant Brown isn't just offensive, it's illegal," he told reporters. "We're filing a civil rights lawsuit against the school district, the private security company, and all involved parties." The lawsuit alleged racial profiling, emotional distress, public humiliation, and denial of equal access to public events. They weren't asking for millions. They were asking for systemic change. Cartwright's team demanded that all future school security contracts include bias training and accountability protocols. They asked for a formal written apology to be included in every graduation program going forward for the next 10 years. And they demanded that Elijah's son, Darius, be honored at the next school board meeting, with Elijah present, seated in the front row. Not everyone supported Elijah. Local Facebook groups lit up with backlash. Why does everything have to be about race? The guards were just doing their jobs. He should have just shown his ID and moved on. Some parents even claimed Elijah was chasing clout or politicizing graduation. But the people saying that didn't feel what Elijah felt. They didn't know what it meant to be questioned while serving your country. They didn't know the humiliation of being marched out while your son crossed the stage. They didn't know the silence that follows when the system wrongs you, then tries to gaslight you into silence. So Elijah didn't argue. He didn't respond. He just kept telling his story. Because truth doesn't need defending when it's real. Across the country, veterans began speaking out, especially black veterans. They shared stories of being questioned at airports, harassed in uniform, doubted even with medals on their chests. It wasn't just about Elijah anymore. It was about the uniform not being enough. An Air Force colonel shared how he had been stopped outside his daughter's school, accused of trespassing while wearing full fatigues. A Navy vet recounted being told, "You don't look like an officer," at a ceremony honoring service members. Story after story. Pain layered over pain. And people began to understand. The problem wasn't one event. It was a pattern. 2 months later, the school district released a revised incident summary. They claimed the guards were responding to an anonymous tip that a man in uniform may not have been on the authorized guest list. They also noted that Elijah had initially failed to cooperate, though that statement was quickly walked back when video footage emerged. The footage showed Elijah standing calmly, surrounded by guards, saying the words, "I'm here for my son's graduation. I'm not leaving." That clip went viral. Again, not because it was explosive, but because it was quiet, firm, controlled, human. The world saw who Elijah was and who the system still treated him as. The courtroom wasn't packed with reporters. By now, the media had shifted to other headlines, politics, celebrity scandals, a fresh police controversy. But for Elijah Brown, this was his trial, his moment, not to get revenge, but to get acknowledgement. The judge was stern but fair. Lawyers made their opening statements. The school district's team repeated what everyone had already heard. It was a protocol issue, a misunderstanding, not an act of malice. But Elijah's attorney knew better. He called witnesses. He called experts. A retired Army general testified that racial profiling of black service members is rampant and growing. A behavioral psychologist spoke about the trauma inflicted on veterans when their identity is invalidated in public. Then Elijah took the stand, and the courtroom leaned in. No anger in his voice. No theatrics. Just truth. I've been shot at. I've lost brothers overseas. But that moment, being removed like a criminal while my son watched, that was worse. Not because of ego, not because of pride, but because I couldn't protect my son from it. You train your whole life to be respected in that uniform. And in 5 minutes, they tore that from me like it meant nothing. Some jurors looked away. Others stared directly into Elijah's eyes. And for the first time since this began, it felt like someone was listening. Darius testified too. He was quiet, nervous, not a public speaker. But his words were powerful. I didn't see my dad when I walked across the stage. I thought maybe he was late, or in the back. Later, when he told me what happened, I didn't know how to feel. Angry, embarrassed, but mostly just empty. I know my dad. I've seen his medals. I've seen the way people salute him at the base. But at school, that didn't matter. They saw a black man in a uniform and decided he didn't belong. You could hear a pin drop. The judge let the silence sit. Because sometimes silence says more than words ever could. The jury deliberated for 3 days. They returned with a mixed verdict. Yes, the guards had acted inappropriately. Yes, the school district had failed to protect Elijah's rights. But they stopped short of calling it racial discrimination. They awarded Elijah $275,000 in damages. Legal fees covered. Public apology mandated. But to Elijah, it felt incomplete. You can't put a price on dignity, he told reporters. You can't pay for the moment they stole. Still, he accepted the ruling, not for himself, for every other veteran who watched and waited to see if the system would finally recognize their pain. In the months that followed, Elijah kept receiving letters from students, soldiers, parents. Some thanked him for speaking up. Others apologized for not realizing this was happening all along. The school district updated its security training protocol. Every new hire now undergoes racial bias education. The principal stepped down quietly, replaced by a younger, more progressive administrator. And every graduation since, the district leaves a chair in the front row reserved, in honor of all who serve. That was Elijah's idea, but he never sat in it again. He said that seat wasn't for him anymore. It was for the kid in the audience, the young black student who wonders if he'll ever be fully seen. Make sure he knows he belongs, Elijah said. No one should have to earn their humanity. This wasn't just one event. This was a mirror, a reflection of who we applaud and who we suspect, who we honor and who we humiliate. The question isn't whether the guards were wrong. That part's done. The real question is what we do now. Do we keep pretending that racism wears a hood and burns crosses? Or do we admit that it now wears badges, conference lanyards, and school policy manuals? Do we keep telling black veterans to wear their uniforms with pride, while also telling them they need to explain themselves when they do? Or do we finally say, you shouldn't need proof to be treated with respect? Elijah Brown's story didn't start on that graduation day, and it won't end there either. He's now working with a national nonprofit that helps minority veterans transition into civilian life. He speaks at schools. He speaks to police departments. He speaks to anyone willing to listen. And his message is simple. This country is mine too, and I shouldn't have to keep proving it. Like my video and subscribe to my channel for more daily videos.